bit deeper. I know that's a lot to learn. And a lot of you guys, wow, that was a lot of information. But let's go a little deeper. I just want to review, so make sure you guys have this down pat. So when you're running comps, first thing you want is you want 3 to 5 solds. When I say sold, that means the house is already closed. It's not for sale. For example, many times over the years, I've had, when I was talking to sellers will say, they'll give me a price. I want 200 grand for this house, and I'm thinking, where did you come up with that number? And they'll say, well, that's because my neighbor across the street, their house is for sale for 190, and my house is a lot nicer than theirs. And the key word was their house is for sale. It hasn't sold. You can ask any price you want for a house, but until it sells, we don't use that information. So we want to find 3 to 5 sold properties. And remember, these solds need to be, we're trying to find ARV. They need to be retail solds. Retail value, meaning they weren't foreclosures. They have to be all in perfect move-in condition to find retail value. All right, so then those 3 to 5 solds need to have been sold within the last 3 to 6 months. And right now markets are going up, so you want to use, this 3-month probably number is more accurate than 6 months ago. If you're in a market right now that's going up 20% a year, well, if you go out six months, you're probably shortchanging your comps a little bit. The closer, the better. Now, those solds need to be within a half-mile radius of the house that you're buying. So, for example, your house is here. You want a half mile in any direction. I know that circle's not the best, but you guys get the point. Now, remember, if you've got if there's a significant dividing line in that area, for example, a lot of times you're like, hey, you heard the old saying, on the other side of the tracks. If there's train tracks and the neighborhood changes drastically, or if there's an interstate or a certain street and the neighborhood starts to drop a little bit or go up, either way, same thing, then you don't want your comps to be in that area. Just mark out that area and keep your comps within areas are like neighborhoods. So half-mile radius, the same number of beds and baths. Whether it's a rental property or a fix and flip property, if it's a fix and flip and it's 3 bedrooms, and you've got a 2-bedroom house, it's not going to be the same numbers. You've got to stay the same. Baths as well. Baths aren't as critical as far as like if you've got a 1.5 bath, like a bath and a half or a 2-bath house, that's going to be smaller. You can maybe use that comp and then adjust a little bit. You notice in the video we talk about, hey, you get close, you can make an adjustment. Here's a little key. If you don't know how much of an adjustment to make, that's where you call the realtor. Hey, Mr. or Mrs. Realtor, I've got a house that's a half bath difference than, it's a 3.1 or a 3.1.5 versus a 3.2. How much difference does a half bath make? And just ask their opinion. Or, hey, I've got covered parking, but this other house doesn't. How much does that make? And they'll give you an example. So don't freak out if you don't know that information. Just ask a professional that you put on your team and make the adjustment. The square footage must be within plus or minus 20%. So if you've got a house that's 1,350 square feet, you can go as high as 1,620 and as low as 1,080. Okay, so just always add 20% and subtract 20%. You've got to keep that same. The reason why is if you could have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house that's 1,000 square feet, but you could also have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house that's 2,000 square feet. Okay, but I can tell you a 2,000 square foot house is much different than a 1,000. So we like to keep them close. And we're going to do, you saw where in the video we showed you where, we're doing the math for you. I'm going to take it one step further and just make sure everybody understands. The reason I'm spending a lot of time on this is it's so important. It's such a critical skill. The next thing, the style of home has to be the same. So, if you've got a ranch, you want to stay with ranch homes. If you've got a bungalow, stay with bungalow homes. If you've got a brick ranch, you want to stay with brick ranch homes. You want to make sure you keep them the same. The other thing too is if you've got a house with an extremely large, plot of ground with it or a backyard. For example, if it's got 2 acres, you want to make sure you stay with houses that are like that, because otherwise the value is going to be off a little bit. If it is off and you can't find a comp, ask a realtor, hey, I've got a house with 2 acres. All the other houses I'm comping against have 1 acre. How much is that 1 acre difference? And the last thing is age. You want to make sure you keep age as close as possible. I like to keep them within 10 years. But, if the house is 100 years old, 10 years isn't as important. Most of the newer homes, 1950s and newer, keep them within 10. If it was just built last year, keep it within 3 or 4 years. So the older the home, the less how close the number of years away isn't a big deal. For example, we're in 2014. You get a house built in 1900 under contract. You can go to 1930s if you want. So there's a 30-year spread there, but that's fine. It's so old that it's not as much of an impact. So you got to make sure all this information stays. Notice that I put into style or location. We put in like the school district. It makes a difference. So if you go through all this stuff and you're only pulling 1 comp or 2, there's a couple things you can change first to pull in some more houses. You could go here to the half mile and put it to 3/4 of a mile and see if you can pull enough comps to make your 3 to 5. Or you could go a little bit further here and maybe go 9 months if you have to. Those are the things I would change to pull in more houses. Everything else I would leave the same. If you still can't pull any comps, I would proceed with caution because something's wrong. Why isn't anything selling? It might be a kind of a red flag indicator to you that maybe you're not in an area you should be. Okay, so now we've got all this information. Let's just go through the math again to make sure that everybody's clear. I want to make sure you guys know how to do this. And you'll be able to do it in your sleep at some point. So I'm going to write out an example. Let's say that you